Couple jailed for brutal abuse of Indonesian maid. 2 injured in an 8-vehicle pileup on Garden Road. And gunman in Washington Navy Yard shooting had mental problems.
Good evening. An 8-vehicle pileup on Garden Road this afternoon led to serious traffic congestion in the mid-levels. 2 people were injured. Jenny Lam reports.
The 8 vehicles in the accident included this lorry. Its truckload of building material was scattered all the way down Garden Road. One of the cars ended up on the pavement. The lorry driver said he was coming downhill with a passenger in his vehicle.
The brake has failed. The truck brake has failed. That's why I cannot stop.
He escaped with minor injuries. This driver said she heard a loud noise of something rolling towards her, and before she knew what was going on, glass started flying into her vehicle. The accident occurred at around 4 p.m. and led to a long tailback all the way up the hill. The entire Garden Road had to be closed to traffic, leading to congestion in the mid-levels. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Well, Bo Xilai will learn his fate this Sunday. That's when a court in Shandong province will deliver a verdict in the trial of the ousted Chongqing party boss. Bo was tried last month on charges of bribery, embezzlement and abuse of power. The disgraced former political high flyer denied most of the charges he faces. During the trial, the court heard damning allegations against Bo made by his wife Gu Kailai and his former right-hand man Wang Lijun. But Bo hit back, challenging their testimonies.
Japan faces fresh calls to face up to history on the 82nd anniversary of the Mukden incident, marking the Japanese invasion of northeast China in the run-up to the Second World War. In Shenyang, a bell was tolled 14 times at 9:18 a.m. That symbolized 14 years of the Chinese campaign against Japanese aggression between 1931 and 1945. Other commemorative activities were held in many other parts of the country, including here in Hong Kong, where a group of activists rallied at the Japanese Consulate General in Central. 82 years ago today, Japan laid siege to Mukden, now Shenyang, and began the military occupation of northeast China. Japan launched a full-scale invasion in 1937.
Turning overseas now, as authorities in the U.S. tried to come up with a motive for the deadly Washington Navy Yard shooting 2 days ago, new details have emerged of the mental problems the gunman was suffering from. And questions have been raised on why he was able to buy guns.
13 dead in Monday's Washington Navy Yard bloodshed. The question now is, what triggered the rampage? It's emerged that the gunman, former U.S. Navy reservist Aaron Alexis, was in the early stages of treatment for serious mental problems. During a visit to Rhode Island last month, Alexis complained to police that people were talking to him through the walls and ceilings of his hotel rooms and sending microwave vibrations into his body to deprive him of sleep. But Alexis, a defense contract employee before his death, had never been declared mentally ill or stripped of his security clearance. He used a valid pass to enter the Washington Navy Yard, where he opened fire.
Navy Secretary Ray Mabus has ordered a quick-look security assessment for all Navy and Marine Corps installations across the country. He expects that to be done and handed in to him by October 1st.
Then there's the issue of gun control. Alexis bought a shotgun in Virginia just days before the shooting. He was said to have passed a federal background check.
The fact that we do not have a firm enough background check system is something that makes us more vulnerable to these kinds of mass shootings. And you know, I do get concerned that this becomes a ritual that we go through every 3-4 months, where we have these horrific mass shootings, and yet we're not willing to take some basic actions that we know could make a difference.
And security will be beefed up, not just on American soil. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is now planning a review of security and access at all Defense Department installations worldwide.
To Austria now, where a suspected poacher involved in yesterday's shooting deaths of 4 people, including 3 police officers, has been found dead. The gunman barricaded himself in a farmhouse and was locked in a standoff with police after the shooting rampage. Officers later stormed the premises and extinguished a fire in the cellar. They found a charred body believed to be that of the 55-year-old suspect. Police believe he started the blaze. The standoff began after the man broke through a roadblock in the province of Lower Austria near Vienna, where authorities were trying to catch hunters shooting deer without a license. He was then suspected to have gunned down several police officers and a paramedic before fleeing in a stolen police car to his home, apparently taking another policeman with him as a hostage. The body of the missing officer was later found in his patrol car. Local media said the gunman had confided to a friend earlier that he was schizophrenic.
The foreign ministers of France and Russia clashed over who was responsible for a deadly sarin gas attack in Syria last month. While the United States, Britain and France blame the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, Russia believes the attack was carried out by rebel forces. Alan Buchner reports.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his French counterpart, Laurent Fabius, met in Moscow to discuss the Russian-U.S. brokered deal that would see Syria hand over its chemical weapons arsenal to the international community. A United Nations report released Monday confirmed the use of sarin gas in the August 21st attack outside Damascus, but didn't say who was responsible. France, Britain and the U.S. jumped on the evidence in the report, particularly the type of gas and rockets used, to blame Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. But Lavrov said, not so fast. He asked for an objective investigation into the events, saying Russia has serious reasons to believe the attack was a provocation carried out by the rebels to further turn world opinion against the Assad regime. The UN Security Council is to decide on the Russia-US framework of a resolution, but it's still unclear when a vote on that will be taken. Speaking at the opening of the UN General Assembly, Secretary Ban Ki-moon expressed optimism for a new round of Syrian peace talks.
As the international community unites against the threat of chemical warfare, it must also come together to stop the wider war that is destroying Syria. I hope we can build on the diplomatic momentum and move quickly to a peace conference and a political solution.
Alan Buchner, TVB News.
Turkish Prime Minister Recep Erdogan defended his country's action after a Syrian military helicopter was shot down in Turkish airspace Monday. Amateur video caught the aircraft falling from the sky, followed by a parachute descending. Turkey's military says the helicopter was downed by a fighter jet after it ignored repeated warnings to leave Turkish airspace. Syria accused Turkey of escalating tensions and said the helicopter mistakenly flew into Turkish airspace while monitoring cross-border infiltration of rebels. Erdogan defended the military's actions, saying the armed forces simply did what was necessary.
To our main local story now, and a couple have been found guilty and jailed for subjecting their Indonesian domestic helper to abuse over a 2-year period. In sentencing, the judge said the case undermined Hong Kong's reputation as a safe place for workers. Joada Silva reports.
42-year-old Tai Chi Wai and his 41-year-old wife, Catherine Au, were found guilty of 8 charges. The district court heard they subjected their Indonesian domestic helper, Kartika Puspitasari, to horrendous abuse for about 2 years. She was repeatedly beaten by the couple, who used shoes and a bicycle chain to hit her, and even scalded her in the face with a hot iron. In reaching his decision, Judge So Wai Tak rejected the defense claims that the 45 wounds and scars on Kartika's body were self-inflicted. He said a doctor's report had clearly ruled out that possibility. But the judge also dismissed some of the maid's claims, saying they were exaggerated. He said that it would not be logical for the couple to leave her tied up at home with their children. So also questioned why Kartika did not attempt to escape on numerous occasions when she found herself alone outside the house. And he also found it hard to believe that Au forced her to go around the house and her family in see-through plastic bags. A charge of false imprisonment was dismissed. Still, Tai was jailed for 3 years and 3 months, and Au was sentenced to a 5.5-year jail term.
When handing down the verdict, the judge emphasized the importance of sending a strong message to society that workers in Hong Kong, regardless of nationality, are protected by the law.
Foreign domestic workers groups are satisfied with the verdict, but added that rules dictating that workers have to live with their employers have to change.
We are hoping that there will be no kartika, but it will happen if the Hong Kong government will listen to the concern and issues of the foreign domestic workers in Hong Kong, and if the Hong Kong government will review and repeal its policy that makes the working condition of the foreign domestic workers very vulnerable to exploitation.
Juan da Silva, TVB News.
And still to come on the news tonight. Government not to push for more mainland tourists until a study is done. Mobile laser technology for land surveys. And cloudy weather possible during the Mid-Autumn Festival.
Welcome back. The government has denied media reports that it plans on expanding the individual visit scheme for tourists from the mainland. Secretary for Economic and Commerce Development Greg So said the administration won't push for more tourists until a study on Hong Kong's carrying capacity is done. The city's population problem is getting more politicised as local media capitalises on public fear. Newspaper headlines said today the government plans to add 3 more mainland cities to the current 49, which have an individual visit arrangement with the SAR, a report the government has refuted.
There is no current plan to expand the number of cities under the individual visitor scheme to Hong Kong.
So says the government is wrapping up a study on the city's carrying capacity to see how a balance can be struck between developing tourism and lessening the impact on the already dense local population.
The solution must lie in the fact that we need to expand our capacity so that we could take in visitors and allowing them to have a very positive experience in Hong Kong.
He didn't say how the government would increase the city's capacity, but the tourism industry has offered some suggestions. Travel Industry Council Chairman Michael Wu says he's been trying to get the government to improve supporting infrastructure that will help lessen the impact of the large numbers of tourists. For example, he said, pick-up and drop-off points at key sightseeing spots should be better designed so large tour buses don't end up blocking the way.
Cheung Kong Holdings chairman Li Ka-shing warned yesterday that the negative effects of the government's property cooling measures may be evident next year. But today, Financial Secretary John Tsang defended the measures as effective in stabilising the property market. He called on lawmakers to pass the relevant bill, adding that the cooling measures will be lifted when the time is right. Jenny Lam reports.
Li Ka-shing's decision to sell his supermarket chain, Park and Shop, sparked fear that Hong Kong's richest man is pulling his assets out of the territory. Li refused to further comment on his earlier remark that his conglomerates, Cheung Kong Holdings and Hutchison Whampoa, are not moving to anywhere else. Yesterday, he warned of negative effects resulting from the government's property cooling measures, saying it is hard right now to predict which way housing prices will go. He also said he is definitely against the Occupy Central movement, saying it will damage the city's image as a financial hub. Financial Secretary John Tsang said today what Li Ka-shing does with Cheung Kong and Hutchison Whampoa are commercial decisions that the government will respect. On property prices, Tsang pointed out that the increase so far this year is already relatively small when compared with last year. That means the cooling measures are working, he said. The Financial Secretary urged legislators to pass the relevant bill soon, and the government, he added, will abolish those measures when the time is right. At the end of the day, he concluded, the solution to Hong Kong's housing woes lies in increasing supply. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Well, the Long-Term Housing Strategy Steering Committee suggested earlier that subdivided flats should be licensed to ensure safety. But an engineer points out that most of these dwellings do not comply with building regulations. Some landlords fear that costly licensing requirements will only force people out of their homes. Here's Jenny Lam again.
A typical subdivided flat like this one is a maze of corridors that open into tiny units. The raised floor hides pipes so that each unit can have its own kitchen and toilet. In order to comply with building and fire safety regulations, the doors and walls must be able to withstand fire for at least 1 hour. There cannot be any added solid platforms, and a certified person must check that the property can support the weight of any alterations. The corridors alone in this unit will not comply with the minimum width requirement. Former legislator Raymond Ho, who represented the engineering industry, says most subdivided flats are not up to standard. But he is against bending the rules to suit them. And that's a headache for the landlords. Shea Hing-Hwa, chairman of the Hong Kong Owners Club, says it costs $40,000 to $50,000 a month to run a subdivided flat. Fixing the properties in order to comply with standards, he says, will double the cost, and tenants simply won't be able to afford the rent. Social worker Ng Kwan Lim doubts if licensing subdivided flats is the answer to housing problems faced by many low-income families. People live in these flats because they are cheap, he says, and they have no choice even if they know the units are against regulations. Ng knows of tenants who have to move out of subdivided flats because of rent increases after a licensing system was suggested. The Buildings Department, he says, has also stepped up inspections of rooftop homes and other illegally built structures. Ng fears the government action will only exacerbate housing problems among the poor. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
A new tendering process is in place for building contractors looking to bid for redevelopment projects under a government scheme. It's also an attempt by authorities to stop criminals from muscling their way into the process. Evelyn Leung tells us more.
Operation Building Bright, a government-subsidized scheme to promote old building rehabilitation and create employment opportunities, has been in the spotlight recently, and sometimes not for the right reasons. It's after a police investigation found criminals would intimidate, blackmail, or even wound contractors and owners' corporations to manipulate the tendering process of the building redevelopment projects. The scheme organizers, the Urban Renewal Authority and the Housing Society, today unveiled a new tendering process which they hope will put an end to these unlawful acts.
That is mainly by hiding the identity of the prospective bidders until the first round of analysis have been completed based on all the tendering prices and the build-ups.
Also, an independent accounting firm will be appointed to handle the tender procedures. The new tendering arrangement will be applicable to around 200 applications involving about 255 buildings which have been approved by either the Housing Society or the URA but haven't been given the tender documents for the works yet. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Turtle jelly manufacturer Hoi Tin Tong had its name cleared today following allegations that it had been selling mouldy products. Secretary for Food and Health Ko Ing-man said government tests found no mold in the jelly and it did not contain bacteria at a concentration that could lead to food poisoning. Inspections of Hoi Tin Tong's local factory and retail outlets also confirmed that hygiene conditions are acceptable. Land surveys on vegetated hillsides and in urban areas may soon be made easier thanks to laser technology. Stephanie Choi takes a closer look.
Drivers may be relieved to know that road closures due to land surveys could become a thing of the past. The Civil Engineering and Development Department is testing out a mobile laser scanner, a device that uses light pulses to measure distances between surfaces. The device can be attached to a moving vehicle to collect data over large areas. So, workers can collect data from natural environments, such as hillsides, without creating temporary pathways.
It's a less impact on the environment. The other thing is the safety of the site personnel.
The scanner can also be used along busy roads without disrupting traffic. This means the process of data collection is shortened to just the amount of time it takes to drive by a site. But this will not lessen the time spent on data analysis. Although the mobile laser scanner is convenient, it cannot replace traditional methods of land surveying. For example, laser cannot go through opaque surfaces such as concrete, so only traditional tools can get the job done. Engineers say the scanner's ability to map out 3D images of slopes makes it a useful supplement to data collected through other means. Trials have already been carried out at locations such as Cloudview Road in North Point and Repulse Bay Road. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
All right, Tony, over to you for sports.
That's right, we've got football to talk about and the return of the Champions League. No major upsets in the Champions League overnight as the big names such as Bayern Munich, Real Madrid and Manchester City all won. Manchester United were also winners last night with English forward Wayne Rooney, the star of the show.
Wayne Rooney's flirtation with Chelsea over the summer was but a distant memory as he led Manchester United with 2 goals in their win over Bayer Leverkusen. Robin van Persie and Antonio Valencia also scored as United beat the Germans 4-2 on home turf. Rooney now has 200 career goals for United and manager David Moyes was glad to see him playing so well.
Looks he's moving as well as he has done. You know, he's in a good place himself at the moment, and obviously any centre forward who's scoring goals feels good about himself.
United's rivals Manchester City were 3-0 winners over Victoria Pleasant, but their manager felt the Czechs played a tough game.
That was very important to create a space in a team that had 10 players behind the ball. It's very difficult.
Real Madrid began their Champions League campaign in emphatic style, thrashing Turkish side Galatasaray 6-1. Cristiano Ronaldo scored a hat-trick, but Carlo Ancelotti said his team weren't going to get carried away.
The result was really good. It's important to win away the first game, but we have other 5 games.
And Bayern Munich began the defence of their title on a winning note, beating CSKA Moscow 3-0.
On to baseball now, and the Texas Rangers reversed their slumping fortunes as they drew level with the Tampa Bay Rays in the American League wildcard race. Ian Kinsler and Elvis Andrus homered and drove in 3 runs for Texas as the Rangers cruised to a 7-1 win over Tampa. The victory ended a 7-game losing streak and gives their playoff hopes a much-needed boost. The Rangers, who held the #1 wildcard spot in addition to the American League West lead for most of the summer, won for only the 4th time in 17 games.
And finally, a severe tropical storm in the region may ruin tomorrow evening's moon gazing during the Mid-Autumn Festival. The observatory says the storm Usagi was centered about 970 kilometers east-northeast of Manila at 7 p.m. and is moving in the general direction of the Luzon Strait. Usagi is forecast to bring cloudy weather to Hong Kong tomorrow evening. During the day, it'll be sunny with occasional heavy showers. But if you're determined to gaze at the moon, it'll be most round at 7:30 p.m. and highest in the sky at 22 minutes past midnight tomorrow.
Well, fingers crossed the weather stays clear.
Or you could just watch the news instead. That's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Hello everyone, it was mainly fine at first today before becoming cloudy in the afternoon. At 4 p.m., severe tropical storm Usagi was centered about 980 kilometers east-northeast of Manila and is forecast to move across the west-north Pacific towards the Luzon Strait. Today's temperatures range from 26.2 to 30.2 degrees. And the current temperature is 27.8 degrees Celsius. A trace amount of rainfall has been recorded since midnight, and the strong monsoon signal is now in force. So, Freddie, how's the weather tomorrow? A few showers, mainly cloudy in the morning and at night. Sunny periods during the day tomorrow. Temperatures will range from 26 to 31 degrees. Tomorrow's API is forecast at 30 to 80 and the pollution level will range from medium to high. The maximum UV index forecast for tomorrow will be about 8. Now, here's the latest global weather update. Cloudy in Shanghai and Xiamen. Sunny in Guangzhou, showers in Chengdu. Sunny in Seoul and Tokyo. Rain in Ho Chi Minh City and Manila. Sunny intervals in Kuala Lumpur, thunderstorms in Singapore. Showers in Karachi, rain in Mumbai. Sunny in Cairo, sunny intervals in Nairobi. Showers in Brisbane, Melbourne and Auckland. Cloudy in Toronto, sunny in New York. Sunny intervals in Vancouver and Los Angeles. Showers in London and Zurich, cloudy in Paris and Frankfurt. And that's the weather. Have a great evening.